everyone, and welcome to our channel at Bluestone, where we are equipping Christian women to thrive in faith, health, and family. My name is Caroline, and I'm here with Julia, a licensed mental health therapist, and Dr. Eden, our resident OBGYN. And we are really excited. We're going to talk today about something that I think gets overlooked a lot in our society and can be really a huge challenge to incorporate into our lives. And today we're going to talk about taking a Sabbath. So my first question for you ladies is, what is a Sabbath, and what does God say about taking a Sabbath?
Well, Sabbath is one of my favorite things, and mostly it's because I've always known about Sabbath, have heard about Sabbath, read about Sabbath in the Bible, but I think it's only been the last few years that I've really been intentional about practicing Sabbath. And Sabbath originated out of when the Hebrews were in slavery. Their whole value was determined by how much work, how much they could produce for the Egyptians. So, and it was just ongoing. That was their value. And so when God brought them out of Egypt, he said basically to them, I'm the kind of God that's going to give you rest. Your value is not in what you do. Your value is in who you are to me. And so I'm going to institute a day where you rest. And their Sabbath began at night because it's rest. So it's like that's the beginning of Sabbath. And then it goes through the next day. So I love that. It shows who our God is, his grace and his mercy towards us, that we are more important to him because of who we are, not what we do.
Oh, that's so good. Growing up, Sunday was just like the church day. It was just the culture that I grew up in, and all the businesses were closed, and we were just forced to kind of be at home. And it wasn't until actually, like you said, the last few years that Sabbath took a whole different meaning for me. It's so much more of like an intentional like time with God, which is what he created it to be, where we rest from the world and we push into him. I always thought that Sabbath was just, oh, God took off the seventh day from work and then that's where he got it from. But there's so much more to it, like you just said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that God wants us to honor the Sabbath and a day of rest. But why is that important? Why is it important for our emotional health, physical health, and spiritual health?
Well, I can speak to our emotional health. So obviously, when you have rest, when you're able to unplug your mind from what your normal tasks are, your normal rhythm of life, it refreshes you. It refreshes your mental health. You're able to sleep and get more rest. So that helps you regulate your emotions more readily. Um, and there's a certain amount of excitement that comes towards knowing you have a day that you've set aside to intentionally unplug and to be able to focus on something that really is restorative. You're able to focus on the Father and do some things that you find joy in. It's absolutely such a beautiful gift from our Father to us. And the implications for our mental health are amazing.
And that really flows into the physical health, because if your mental health is in a good space, it does nothing but good to the rest of your body. If you are mentally feeling good, then you may go exercise. It just leads to all these really good things. And like you said, it is a gift. Without it, we probably would never do it. So thankful.
For sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I know I have no science to back this, but every time I work 7 days in a row, I get sick. Without fail, I will get something without a Sabbath, without a day off. That's wonderful. So what are some common barriers that women face in incorporating this spiritual rhythm of rest into their lives? And what are some practical ways they can overcome them?
Wow. So I think for women, we carry everyone's story in our family, all of our children's stories, their schedules, their routines. We carry our husbands, our spouse's schedule. We also, I think, carry our coworkers and the things we're working on at work. We carry those with us all the time. And so I think our minds are going all the time. We're focusing on how are we going to get the kids' lunch made? How are we going to get out the door? How are we going to get them to sports? How are we going to do all this? And not only are we thinking about how, but then we have to be the ones to execute it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the busyness of life just seems to exude and permeate, I think, every moment of our day. And so I am not in the season of life where I have little children at home anymore, but certainly I work with many women who are, and some of their ideas have been they will take time during one particular day a week, like from the morning once the children go to school until 3 when they have to pick them up, and that becomes part of their Sabbath, where they're being intentional about just slowing everything down, kind of unhooking their heart and their mind from the norm, focusing on the Lord and doing something that is restorative for them. For me, my children are older, they're all adults, and so I start my Sabbath on Friday evening, and it goes till Saturday evening, and I'm able to be intentional about setting aside that time. But I'm in a different season of life. And Dr. Eden, you have little ones, and you run a practice. So talk to us about how you do that.
Well, I think the key phrase that you just said is slowing down.
Yeah.
There are so many emails and text messages and phone calls and social media, and then there's kids. There's a whole another layer to it, and to unhook from that is a discipline, truly. And I need help from God to do that, truly. So we, depending on our work schedule, will the weekend before pick ahead of time what day that's going to be, whether that's Saturday evening to Sunday evening or a Thursday, or sometimes it's just been like 5 p.m. to the next morning on a Thursday, and we'll go out to the beach with the kids or something. Our go-to, our default is a night to a night over the weekend. Now with kids, we try not to let them watch TV all day. In general, we really don't want them to just be watching cartoons all the time, but during our Sabbath day, we replace that with praise music on the TV. So if it's a time we normally would have had TV on, we just listen to worship music so that the TV is on, but it's just, we're praising the Lord still. And that has actually been a huge help. And we've also realized we can bring the kids into things. Like we can watch a podcast about Jesus with them. It just took us like 4 years to realize that we can bring them into all the things that we do. So for us, that with the kids, and then my husband and I, we take turns for like an hour just going and sitting with God, whatever that looks like. And that's truly just the partnership right there. You really rely on your other half for that, but it is so important. And Sam, my husband, and I know immediately, we can tell the next week if we didn't Sabbath. We're just not refreshed. It's just not the same.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
A couple other really great ideas of taking your phone. I know families that will actually put them in a lockbox at a certain time and not let anyone get to them until the next day at that same time.
That's cool.
Yeah, another great way to start Sabbath is to have kind of a celebratory kickoff dinner, and your kids can help make that dinner, and you just make it a really fun gathering where we're going to do, Sabbath starts, and this is the meal, and we're all going to join around the table and start Sabbath with a great meal together. And some families love to bring friends over and kind of kick it off that way too. So you really can incorporate your family in it. But again, it takes planning.
Yeah, planning.
You have to be intentional.
We have to plan for Sabbath.
Yep.
Like we get all of our laundry done before Sabbath. We go grocery shopping before Sabbath. Like if it's not on my calendar, then I can't think ahead. So we literally have Sabbath on our calendar, which we picked the weekend before so that we can plan. When we first started thinking about it, doing it, at first I just felt another discipline, like another thing I've got to do. But then the return is so great.
Yeah.
It is. And I think it's teaching children, we as Christ followers, we are kind of we're set apart. We're not doing what the world does. The world just keeps going, like they're driven. They're just busy. We're running. But for this 24 hours, we're going to slow everything down, slow the pace of our life down, slow our souls down. And we're just going to be together, be intentional about our relationships with one another. And that, I think it's such a gift from the Father.
Absolutely. Yeah. You set an example for your children, and then they develop that discipline, and that becomes normal culture for them. And I think preparation is really important, because if you don't prepare, if you don't have the laundry done or the dishes done, well, you probably still have dishes, but if the grocery shopping or whatever that to-do list is, if that's not done, you're just going to be thinking about those things, and then you're not going to be able to rest. So now, what would you guys say to a mom who feels guilty about having Sabbath or finding rest?
Well, first, if you're a Christ follower, there's no condemnation, right? I mean, there's so much grace. And I think if you're being intentional about moving towards that, I mean, do what you can. Ask the Lord for creative ideas. Maybe ask some of your friends for creative ways to do it. But I don't think that Sabbath was created to be burdensome and something you feel guilty over if you don't do it. I think if you look at it as a gift, I mean, we move towards what we long for. And if we're longing for that rest, if we're longing for that, we'll make a way for that to happen.
Now, what would you say to a mom who feels guilty about taking rest?
Well, I think that's about a bunch of different things. So exercise, time. Gosh, my husband and I went on a date night this week, and my husband told my 4-year-old, okay, mommy and I are leaving, and the babysitter's here. And he's like, well, why did you have to leave? My husband said to him, mommy and I have to have our time just like we have time with you. And he said, oh, okay. And he just kept going. So we want to teach our kids exercise is good. So we are going to take time away from them to exercise. Sabbath is non-negotiable. Like, this is what we do as a family. This is what we do. But first, my husband and I had to believe that. Like, we had to decide what was non-negotiable or what is necessary. And then that guilt is just kind of gone. This is just what we do, but it took a process to get there. But the guilt is real.
That's right. And I think sometimes too, when you feel a pressure that if you rest, you're not performing. Sometimes it goes back to childhood, where you were made to feel guilty if you laid on the couch, or if you took a nap, or if you weren't always doing chores or always achieving. So some of it may require going back and doing some therapeutic work of, why do I feel guilty? Because I have a hard time just resting. So it's interesting.
Do you think that there's a need to depend on God in there, that he will take care of you as you rest? Where do you think that comes into play?
Oh, absolutely. I think if you're giving it's like giving your first fruits. We're giving our first day to him, and then we have to trust him that everything else that needs to get done, we're surrendering all that to him. It's like surrendering your list to him. I can have a list as long as my arm, but someone can come, a person who needs something, and that interrupts my tasks. So I think if you're always thinking in terms of people over tasks, you're thinking of spending time with the Father over kind of all the projects and things that you have to do. Definitely, I think you're trusting him with your time, and you're trusting him that, okay, I'm doing what you've asked me to institute into my life, and so I'm trusting you then to take care of everything else.
I feel like the Lord has really been bringing this word up to me a lot recently, and that's assignment. In so many different platforms, this word assignment comes up, of like, what is like our personal God-given assignments that we have. And I feel like he's revealed to me, I've taken my assignment for this season, and then I've been doing all the tasks and figuring out how to do the assignment, when he's really just asking us to follow him through the assignment. Because we don't know what it is God wants ultimately. We're just supposed to follow him, and he already knows what it's supposed to look like. So, as a parent, as a woman of God, part of my general lifelong assignment is to do these things, and that's pray with him, spend time with him in Sabbath. So I'm really trying to go in with that attitude about it of, if I truly am just like following my king and doing whatever it is he wants me to do, he wants us to do that. So that just makes the guilt, or I don't know, all of that fall aside, because it's all for him. I know that he's going to take care of everything else.
So good, Amy.
Yeah. And did it take you a while to get to that place of dependency?
It took me so long to realize that this wasn't it. You know, like I think I'm just hard headed. I like to do it my way first. I'm like, that's not working. And then God's like, hello, I've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
But, you know, learning the hard way is also an amazing testimony, just to say, like, look what I tried to do myself. And I'm obviously wasn't rested. The first time we did Sabbath, for example, my husband and I were tense the whole day. We could not relax. We weren't sure how to do this. We knew our phones were over there, and no one enjoyed it. Like we tried to like force it to be this whatever we thought in our mind Sabbath was supposed to be, because God clearly doesn't lay out, this is exactly what you do on Sabbath. He just says rest. That's so general. My husband and I like very black and white rules of what to do and how to successfully do the Sabbath, right? But God is just leading us. Every Sabbath can look different, whatever it is to be with him. But it took trial in seeing that, again, even something as simple as a Sabbath, I was trying to exert my control, if you will, into it, taking the assignment and doing it myself instead of asking him how to do it. So
true. It's so true.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, in closing, what is one piece of encouragement you would give to a woman struggling to take a Sabbath?
I would say just move towards it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just move towards it. Whatever that, just take a step and just see what happens with that. Just be intentional. I love that your idea of putting it on your calendar so you can kind of prep ahead. But just take steps moving towards that.
What about you, Dr. Eden?
I love what you actually mentioned about your friend who took a time during the week, and it wasn't 24 hours. Like, she's just starting kind of small. I think that's a great way to ease into it, if you will. Like, just take a morning. But truly, if you're married or have a partner, you have to sit down and be in agreement. Talk about it. Make it a thing. You know, if it's just in your head, it's just more likely to not happen. If it's on my calendar, it will happen. So.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and hearing all about taking a Sabbath. And if you are enjoying hearing from our experts, please like and subscribe for more content on all things spiritual, emotional, and physical health for women. So thank you so much and have a blessed day.